All right, let's talk about one of those tricky bits of English that seems to trip everyone up, the present continuous. You know, the ing tense. On the surface, it seems pretty simple, right? It's all about what's happening right now. But how is it actually different from the present simple? Ah, that's where things get interesting.
Okay, so just look at these two sentences. I work in Bristol versus I'm working from home today. Both are totally correct, but they have a completely different feel, don't they? The first one feels solid, permanent. It's a fact about my life. But the second one, that's just for today. It's temporary.
So that's the big mystery, isn't it? What really is the difference? And more importantly, how do you know which one to pick? Well, don't worry. That's exactly what we're going to break down right now, step by step.
Okay, first things first. Before we can get into the when you use it, we've got to get comfortable with how you build it. And the good news? The formula is super, super simple. Honestly, just think of it like a three-part recipe. That's it. First, you need a subject. You know, I, he, the dog. Then you pop in the right form of the verb to be. So am, is, or are. And finally, you take your main action verb and just stick ing on the end. That's the whole shebang. Let's see that recipe in action. We'll use the verb to eat. Now, look here. You can see how am, are, and is change depending on the subject. But check out the verb eating. That ing ending, it stays the same for everybody. It's totally consistent, which makes it pretty easy to remember. Now, here's a pro tip if you want to sound more natural when you speak. While it's perfectly fine to say, I am making a video, especially in writing, you'll almost never hear a native speaker say it like that. We squish the words together. We say, I'm making a video. You're, he's, there. It just makes everything flow so much better. And just a quick heads up on spelling, because this can be a little tricky. For most verbs, it's easy. Just add ing. Play becomes playing. Simple. But if the verb ends with a silent E like write, you have to drop that E before you add the ing. And for those short verbs with a consonant-vowel-consonant pattern like run, you gotta double that last letter. Just a few little rules to keep in your back pocket. Okay, so we know how to build it. Awesome. But now for the million-dollar question. When do we actually use it? I've got a really simple analogy that I think is going to make this whole thing just click. And this is it. This is the whole key. I want you to think about a calendar versus a stopwatch. The calendar is for your routines, your habits, your permanent facts. It's the present simple. But the stopwatch, you click that to time something that's happening right now. It's an action in progress. And that, my friends, is the present continuous. So, keeping that stopwatch idea in our minds, there are really three main situations where you're going to pull this tense out of your toolbox. Let's take a look at each one. First up, the most obvious one. Actions that are happening at the exact moment you are speaking. Look at Jane here. What is she doing? At this very second, she isn't having dinner. No, the stopwatch is running on this action. She is watching television. It's happening now. The second big use is for things that are temporary. They're happening around now, but they're not going to last forever. So in this example, I live in London. That's a permanent fact. That's the calendar. But I'm staying with my grandparents this week. See? That's a temporary situation. The stopwatch is running, but only for a limited time. Okay, now this last one can feel a little weird, I know, but we use it all the time in conversational English. We use this now tense to talk about the future. The key is that it's for plans that are already arranged and confirmed. Think of it like this. If it's in your diary, you can use the present continuous. I'm visiting my mom on Friday. The plan is set. It's happening. All right, you've got the rules, you've got the main uses. Now let's talk about how to avoid some of the most common mistakes people make with this tense. Let's sidestep those traps together. Here is a classic. I hear this one a lot. I am knowing the answer. Logically, it feels like it should work, but to a native English speaker, it just sounds a little off. This is a super common trap, and it's all about a special kind of verb. And the fix is incredibly simple. You just say, I know the answer. So why is that? Well, verbs like know, love, want, and believe are what we call stative verbs. They describe a state or a feeling, not an action you can do. You can't really perform the action of knowing, you just know. So as a general rule, we keep these verbs out of the ing form. And here's the other big one. This trap happens when we get our calendar and our stopwatch mixed up. I am going to school every day. It feels like it could be right, but there's a huge clue in that sentence that tells us we need a different tense.
The fix takes us right back to our main analogy. That phrase, every day, what does that signal? A routine, a habit. And what do we use for routines? The calendar. So we need the present simple. I go to school every day. Just remember, if it's a habit, think calendar, not stopwatch.
Okay, learning rules is great, but the real goal is to make this stuff automatic, so you don't even have to think about it. So for this last part, I'm going to share a really powerful technique that you can start using the second this is over. This is a fantastic tip from an English teacher named Bob the Canadian, and he calls it narrating your life. It is exactly what it sounds like. You basically become the play-by-play announcer for your own day. Here's how simple it is. As you go about your day, just say what you're doing. You can say it out loud or just in your head. If you're driving, say, I'm driving my car. If you're eating, I'm eating my lunch. And right now, you can say to yourself, I'm watching a video and I'm learning English. Every time you do that, you're strengthening that connection in your brain. So I'll leave you with this one final thought, which is really a challenge. This question right here is the ultimate practice tool. If you can answer it correctly at any random moment during your day, you are using the present continuous perfectly. So ask yourself often, what are you doing right now? Get into that habit, and you will have this tense completely mastered. Thanks so much for tuning in.